So recessions can be pretty scary. In fact, in 2009, we saw that the unemployment rate was upwards of 10%, which is very scary. I mean, think about that. 10% of the US population was actively seeking work and they could not find a job. So that's very scary. A lot of people do have bad memories of the Great Recession, and we can have some pretty terrible recessions. For example, like the Great Depression. That was a terrible example of a just terrible depression that we had, and it was sort of this economic downturn that we could experience at any time in the future. Now, chances are we're probably not going to have another Great Depression anytime soon, but we have been in a bull run since about 2009, 2010. So since then, we've been on the up, and like anything else, the economy as a whole is sort of like a roller coaster. So it climbs up and then it comes crashing down, climbs up, goes crashing down. Doesn't always have to be like that, but generally speaking, we're always going to have recessions. It's a natural occurrence. The Fed for the U.S. sort of works towards making our economic growth sort of linear and not so much like this, but it certainly does happen anyway. So it's so difficult to actually predict a recession. So we're not going to talk about predicting recessions. I'm not saying that one's coming this year necessarily. I mean, to be honest, I don't know. I don't think anybody really knows for sure when a recession is actually coming, but we can almost be certain that at some point in the next 10, 20 years, we will see a recession. Okay, so let's talk about a few different ways that you can sort of prepare for them. So the first thing that you can do, and this is probably the most important step, is to sort of limit your debt. Okay, so your overall debt that you're paying every month, you want to sort of limit that and sort of eliminate that as much as possible. So the worst thing that can happen for a lot of people is that when the economy is doing great, like it is now, 2018, it's doing great. When the economy is doing great, they start taking out more car loans, they start racking up credit card debt because they can afford it, because they say, oh, I'm making $6,000 a month. I can afford to pay for these things. I can get that nice car. I can buy this new house, get this expensive mortgage, and they start racking up this debt. And that's very fun and great, and times are great. But what happens is we enter a recession and they lose their job, or they just get tighter on money, and then suddenly they can't afford to pay that mortgage, those 2 car payments, all of their credit card bills, and so many other types of debt that they may have incurred over the past years when the economy was doing really great. So you want to be careful with your debt, sort of limit that, and make sure that if anything really terrible happens, that you can still support yourself and sort of pay off your debts while living off of minimum wage or living off of a lower wage than you are now. So I think that's very important. If you're making $6,000 a month, I would try to limit your debt so that you're definitely able to pay off at least $2,000 or $3,000 a month working a different job that may pay you $20 an hour instead of $6,000 a month. So just sort of keep that in mind. Limiting your debts, very useful and important. Now, one other thing that I want to mention is budgeting your money. So I actually have a close family friend. I was talking to him about investments, and he's been living off of minimum wage his entire life. Now, he makes a little bit more than minimum wage now. He makes like $12 an hour, but still, it's not a ton of money coming in. But essentially what he's been able to do over the past 40 years of working is he's really been able to establish this great base. I don't know what his net worth is, but I'm willing to bet it's very close to $1 million. I'm not making that up. That's because he's been able to really budget his money. He has Excel spreadsheets, and before Excel, he used, I don't know what he used. He used paper or something, but he has this budget where he knows how much money is coming in and exactly where all of his money is going. So he knows exactly what he's paying for. If he's paying for Amazon Prime, he has that on there. He knows everything about his money, where it's coming in, where it's going out. And this is going to help you so much. If you can just budget your money, this is going to help you in life. You're going to save more money, invest more money, and just make more money, because it's going to help you in so many ways. For people who don't have this budget, they will be paying all these bills. They sort of have their payments on auto payment, right? So they have their credit card. They don't even know what's on their credit card bill. Like they don't even look at it, because it gets directly taken out of their bank account, automatic payment, right into their credit card. They don't even know what they're buying. I mean, somebody could literally be stealing $200 or $300 a month from them, and they don't even know it. And so it's important to have this budget, because you can say, wait a minute, I'm paying $800 a year for garbage disposal, and then you can just sort of switch to a different company, pay $500 a year, $400 a year, whatever it may be. There's so many things where you can look at it and say, okay, what do I need to cut? I want to cut $500 a month. How do I do this? Cut Netflix, cut this, cut that, and then suddenly you can, it's so much easier when you can visually see what you can actually cut out, and how you can save money. So definitely consider budgeting. I will leave a link or two to some different budget spreadsheets that you can use on Excel or on Google Drive. You can sort of set up these budgets. It's going to help you so much, trust me. I think arguably one of the most important things that you want to do, the most important steps you want to take before a recession actually hits is to sort of diversify your income streams, all right? So a lot of people, the mistake that they make is that they have this one income stream, which is their job, and if they lose their job, they have nothing. They might get unemployment, which sort of brings up another issue here, is that some people, they aren't paying into unemployment because they work under the table their entire life, and so when they lose their job, they can't tap into unemployment because they never paid into it, they never paid taxes and all of those great legal things, right? So this is an issue that people have where they don't have a backfall to if they actually lose their job. They don't have something that they can make money off of. And this is really where I think it's important to have some type of small business venture even while you're working. So maybe on the weekends, maybe after work for a couple hours here and there, sort of work on this small business that you can sort of create. And everybody can create this small business. Sort of just take what you're doing at work and apply it to your own small business. You can freelance writing, freelance anything that you can imagine, graphic design, so many different options that you can sort of create this small business on the side. And then if something happens, like for example, you lose your job, you can sort of scale up that small business that you've been working on, get all the kinks out in the years that you're actually working your job. And then if you need to go full time on that business, you can boost it up very quickly because you already have the experience behind it because you've been playing with that business for the past couple of years. So that's something you might want to consider as well. So there's a pretty popular saying that your network is your net worth. This is so important for a lot of people because if you can really build up this great network of people, it can provide you with so many opportunities. So if you've ever applied for a job, I know getting out of college, if you apply for a job, think about your chances of getting a job if you're best friends with the CFO, right? You're gonna have a much better chance at getting that job because that's just how life works. So that's politics, that's networking, that's how life works. If you know somebody on the inside of a business, there's a good chance that you're gonna have a better chance at getting that job if you have the same level of experience as 5 other people who all have the same level of experience. And if you're the same as them, but you're good friends with the people who own the business, you're probably going to get the job. There's a much higher chance of you getting the job. And that's so important. If you network with very successful people who just can provide you opportunities in the future further down the road, that can be a great one. And there's another saying that you are the average of your 5 closest friends. And if you just take a step back and you think, wait a minute, yeah, I am kind of like my 5 closest friends. And if you're not, give it a few years and there's a good chance you're going to be pretty similar to your 5 closest friends. So if you can sort of surround yourself by people who are successful, who are driven, who want to succeed and can give you opportunities in the future, that could be a great option as well. Because if you lose your job, but you're good friends with somebody who owns a nice business or who's high up in a business, then you can just sort of apply for and they can put in a good word for you. It's going to go such a long way by just becoming friends with some people who have opportunities for you in the future. It's also very important to build up some type of an emergency fund. So this is a mistake that a lot of people make where they don't actually build up this emergency fund. They sort of forget about it and they don't realize that it's so important to have. So, for example, I think it's important to have at least 2 to 3 months of money saved up in your bank account or under your mattress, which I probably wouldn't put it under your mattress. Somebody could steal that. Your bank account's probably a lot safer unless the whole banking system collapses and the world goes into a full-out apocalypse. The banks will probably be pretty safe to put your money in, all right? So I would keep at least 2 to 3 months worth of living expenses in your bank account, okay? Very liquid, something you can go to the bank, in 30 minutes and say, hey, I want $3,000 right now, and then you can spend that money on your living expenses for this month. You can pay rent, you can do everything that you need to do. And it's so important to have this emergency money that you would only really tap into when you truly need it. Now, you don't want to tap into anything like your 401k, your IRAs, your retirement accounts. Don't ever touch those unless it's like truly you're about to get like evicted from your apartment. That's the only time I would ever actually tap into it, because once you start tapping into your retirement accounts, that can just sort of turn into a slippery slope where it sort of becomes okay to tap into your retirement account whenever you want some money, and you start taking money out, and then you end up having very little money when you actually retire. So keep that in mind as well. And just remember that, recessions don't last forever, okay? So sometimes they can really seem like they will last for a long time. In 2009, 2010, it was very scary, and the economy wasn't really turning around very quickly. From 2007, 2008, now it's 2009, the economy is still in the toilet, right? It's still doing terrible. 2010, it was still pretty terrible. And at that point, some people thought, man, what if we just keep going down? What if this keeps getting worse? What if we go into something like the Great Depression? But there's a good chance that that's not going to happen. If it does, okay, it happens. It might last a while, but at some point the economy will go back up unless the world, like I said, goes into a full-out apocalypse. We will go back up and the economy will be doing better at some point. So remember that it doesn't last forever. It's for a short period of time. It could last a couple years, could last a decade even. That's like worst case scenario. I don't know if that's ever really happened for a full decade, but keep that in mind. Now, one other thing that I think is important to mention before we wrap up this video is that if you want to sort of manage your investments in a way that you can sort of create your investments so that they are less volatile for a recession. So if you truly believe that a recession is coming around in the next few months, which is difficult to predict, but you can sort of take a few key factors into consideration when thinking about this. But if you sort of think that a recession is coming in the next few months or in the next year, what you can do is you can limit your risk. So you can sort of take some of your money out of the stock market, put it into something like bonds, which are going to be less volatile, generally speaking, not always, but as a whole, they've been seen as less volatile. You could put into something like money market funds, for example, or CVs, or just into your bank account if you want to hold cash because you're worried about markets crashing. That's something you could do as well. But it's not very smart to try to time the market. Warren Buffett, one of the best investors of all time, agrees that it's not smart to try to time the market. So for example, in 2016, a lot of people said, oh man, you know what? I think we're gonna have a recession in 2016. So they took all their money out of the stock market, put it into their bank account or into cash or into bonds. And then 2016, 2017, we had this great growth in the market. We grew probably about 40% from 2016, early 2016 until now. We grew at least 40% in the markets over that time that people took their money out because they were afraid of a recession. And it's so easy to think, oh my God, a recession is going to come next month, and I just know it because I have that gut feeling. But it's so difficult to predict it. I would suggest just sort of doing some dollar cost averaging where you just put money into the markets, into investments every month, regardless of the current economic situation, because over the long run, it will go up. Now, I think that about wraps up this video. If you have any questions or comments, let me know down below. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.